Hello, folks, and welcome to our MVP podcast. Well, it's our very first one, and what a time to start, because everybody, even though Bafana are out, most people in South Africa and probably across the continent are talking about AFCON. It's semi-final Wednesday, and there's lots to look forward to because we've got two cracking matches. Let's welcome my special guests, who are going to be regulars. I would call them joint broadcasters, actually, and that is Ray, and starting with Yvette. Yvette, welcome to MVP podcast. Sure, big games. The first one, which is the early kickoff, Egypt and Senegal. What a cracker.
Absolutely. I'm very excited for this game going in. I feel as though Egypt, on the other hand, have kind of had a bit of luck. Somehow they keep on managing to win their games. I mean, their football is nothing to write home about. We've seen their performance versus Senegal, who are playing as an absolute force and a unit. You know, there are one or two players that you can kind of pinpoint that are doing a pretty good job with Egypt. You know, Mo Salah is there, Mamouche is there, but having a look at Senegal, it is a whole bunch of players who are knitted together so nicely, from the goalkeeper right through to the defense, right through to the forwards. They're all playing so well that you can't even point out any star players because they're doing so well. Very physical team. I'm a bit worried about them going into the Egyptian game because we've seen a lot of soft red cards coming out in this AFCON. So worried about Senegal in terms of their physicality, but confident for them as they go in.
Interesting points there. I'm going to come back to that, but I want to bring Ray in with regards to Egypt. I would agree with you. I mean, if we look at the game in the group stage when South Africa lost to them, perhaps that's where it went pear-shaped. We don't want to overanalyze the story with Bafana. But had we won that game, we would have topped the group, and then we wouldn't have played who we played as we go on, Cameroon. So it's amazing how your path to semi-finals and finals dictates. But one thing I would say, having done, as you can imagine, lots of tournaments over the years, I've noticed that it's not necessarily a recipe for success to do well early on. We've seen many World Cups and AFCONs where you've dominated your group, and then bang, knocked out. So from an Egyptian point of view, it's about peaking. Maybe their best football is still to come, but I do think that Yvette's right. We haven't seen the best of them for sure.
No, we haven't. And it's funny that you mentioned that you don't have to peak at the right time. In the last AFCON, Ivory Coast were minutes away from elimination from the group stages.
Yeah.
And then they went on to win the tournament. So I think from the Egypt point of view, it's important for them to remember that they're still in it. They're very clinical. One thing about them, they know how to convert chances. Salah's the second top scorer. He's got 4 goals. Mamouche has scored a couple as well. So they've got guys that they don't need to play well. Just feed them at the right time and they'll score. Senegal on the flip side, I think, they're not necessarily peaking, but they're consistent.
Yeah.
They're getting good results. They're playing positive. They're attacking when they can. They've got difference makers all across the front three. Iliman Ndiaye is the one who decided the game against Senegal. You've got Sadio Mane. You've got Nicholas Jackson up front, and a whole bunch of others, as Yvette mentioned. So I think in the way I look at it, I think it's a very evenly matched game because either side could come out on top depending on how each style of play contrasts each other.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't, like Yvette says, there's decided on a rash red card or something like that. But you're right. You mentioned the Ivorians who were fortunate. You'll remember, Ray, not that long ago, there was a European Cup where Portugal won the tournament without winning a game. They drew all 4 of their games, got through on goal difference in the group stage, then drew, won on penalties, drew. So there's a situation where actually a European Championship winner never even won a game. So we'll talk about the second game in a moment. But if I can come back to you, Yvette, you struck a note there for me. 2 different cultures. And Ray's confirmed that technically the Egyptians, you might argue, are somewhat superior.
Yeah.
But from a physical point of view, Senegal very much the other way. So it should be an interesting clash just in terms of North African football and then the Senegalese strength. What have you made of that during the tournament, of the Moroccans and the Algerians and, of course, coming up now, the Egyptians, as opposed to the physicality of sides like Senegal, of Nigeria, to a lesser extent Cameroon?
I think with the football that's played in West Africa, it's very physical, opposed to what they're playing in the North, which is very tactical. So the two clash. If there's one side that I could comfortably identify and say they're kind of playing football that's sort of matching the standard in North Africa, I'd definitely say Nigeria. Coming into the quarterfinal, Nigeria suddenly, I don't know what it is that they ate or the conversation they had in training, but they were playing football that I've never, ever seen them, play before. So again, I need the teams to be very wary going into these final stages. we've seen before with North African teams in North Africa. I don't know, the refs tend to kind of be more lenient towards them. I'm very worried about Senegal, especially because I think they're sitting on 3 or 4 yellow cards right now as a team.
Yeah.
So they need to be very wary going into.
But it's an interesting thing because it's part of their playbook. It's what's made them successful is the closing down, the physicality of it. Because any side, North African, whoever you are in the world, you don't want to be pestered. You don't want to be physically bullied about. So it's part of their playbook. It's part of their makeup. I think it's interesting. Coming back to what the Nigerians are eating, I spent a lot of time in Nigeria. I can tell you one thing, it's hot. Because I learned very quickly wherever I went, there's no pepper, no pepper. So it's the jollof rice, etc. Ray, coming back to you, we're going to now start. I want you to tie me down on who you think will go through to the final. But fascinating encounters about timing and how do you where's this game going to be won and lost? Will it be in the physical midfield, or how do you see it panning out?
I think it'll be in the finishing department. I think
which favours Egypt.
Which
then?
favours Egypt slightly. Yes, I think Egypt, like I said, they have more clinical forwards. But if Senegal creates and play the fluid football that they can once they have possession, because alongside the physicality that you mentioned, they have very good players in midfield. They have players who can carve passes and create crosses. Crepin Diatta has been fullback for Senegal, has been excellent. Going back and forth. So they've got guys who can create from different positions. I think the way I look at it, Mamouche Salah is going to be crucial for them. I think Sadio Mane is going to play a crucial role in this game, not only from a leadership point of view, but from a tactical understanding of how these North African sides play, because they have a very European way of approaching games.
Yeah.
So Sadio Mane might understand that. I think overall, though, I'll probably edge it towards Senegal because I think they'll just have more grit over the
so you're going for Senegal, huh?
Yeah.
Senegal.
That's my
okay,
team.
interesting. But you're obviously saying from an Egyptian point of view, you think Egypt will get on the score sheet likely?
Yes, I think the game might be like a 2-1
or
something along those lines.
Let's hope so.
It
We
may
don't
not
want to
be
see a
decided
dull
in
0-0.
90, but I think it's still going to be 2-1 to Senegal.
Okay, let me find out from your partner in crime whether she's going to agree with you or whether she's going to put on her Egypt hat and be. I suppose if you're talking about Egypt, you can say you'll be in denial if you don't. What do you think? Egypt for you?
Absolutely agree with Ray, actually.
Do you?
Senegal, as I said earlier on, is such a tightly knitted team that, you know, everyone is doing well in the team right now. I don't want to say you can't even see Sadio Mane, but because everyone is shining, it's not easy to point out 2 or 3 individual players like it is with Egypt, you know. So going in, I think Senegal's definitely going to come in with the win. They'll play, but also Egypt just know how to capitalize off of
that's the
off
thing,
of
isn't
nothing.
it? It's experience.
You know? They're not playing good football, but the moment they get a chance, it converts into a goal.
Yeah.
So I'm slightly worried about that, but I do think Senegal will have the edge. It's not going to be a big margin, like Ray said. Maybe looking at a 1-0 or a 2-1, but I'm confident that Senegal is going to bring it home.
I want to stay in theme, but you brought up something that I think is critical in any team sport. And the word is team. You know, the famous thing is there's no I in team.
Yep.
And we've seen it, whether it's Premier League, whether it's domestically in our football here, and certainly in cup football. I remember, again, coming back to a World Cup, remember when France arrived here, they were in complete disarray. Half the team weren't talking to each other, they weren't talking to management, and they quickly got sent back home.
Yeah.
So you need, and we also had discussions about Cameroon having not the ideal preparation, eventually, if you're not a team, there's problems. And we've seen it many times in the Premier League that if you're relying on 1 or 2 individuals who've got big egos, generally a football team that are exactly that are unified, don't necessarily have to have a Ronaldo or a Messi to be effective.
Yes, absolutely. We see it with Nigeria as well. The 3 in the front, I mean, our superstars, you know, Lookman is there, we've got Osimhen there. But one thing I love the most about Osimhen as a player is that he will distribute the ball. He sees an opportunity. He's not selfish at all. He sees an opportunity. I mean, we've heard rumors in the camp that, you know, there are a little bit of fights going on and disagreements with Osimhen and Lookman. But when you look at their performance on the field, it's hard to tell that there's anything happening in their private space because of how well they play as a unit. They have the objective. They know what the end goal is. And whatever it is that's happening, you know, at camp, stays at camp. And the performance has been absolutely fantastic.
Well, listen, you've transitioned us beautifully into the second game, which we're going to talk about. Ray, let's get your opinion first of all then on which undoubtedly, if you're going to pick one of the semi-finals, is the one not to miss. You've got the home team, Morocco, but a Nigerian team who people have written off, and they have certainly peaked. They're scoring lots of goals. They're looking good. What's your take on the match? Similar in many respects of that West African, North African clash. What about that one?
That one is much harder to call, to be honest. I think Nigeria have been free scoring. They've been incredibly creative. Ademola Lookman's had one of the best AFCONs of any player ever. Bunch of assists, a few goals as well. Osimhen, as Yvette's mentioned, as much as he's unselfish, but he's a killer in front of goal, and he's been excellent at that. But Morocco have been Morocco. I think I mentioned on the playbook, if I'm not mistaken, that I fancy Brahim Diaz to be a player of the tournament. He's the top scorer right now with 5. And I think they've got players
Did you
who
put
are
money
like
on
that.
it?
No.
You should have. You should have put
I
money
really
on.
should.
Well, there's next time. You'll be on a playbook soon, so maybe we can do
But
that.
I've really enjoyed the contrast in styles. Nigeria are free-flowing and sort of chaotic when they go forward, but they know what they're doing. So they create chaos in your defense.
Yeah.
Morocco, on the flip side, they are very much they're intricate. They play through you. They've got players who can break down any defense, and I think that's going to be the test for Eric Chalet's side. They're going to really have to be careful at the back because Morocco need just a little burst. Quick 10-minute spell, and you could be 2-0 down. So the test will be concentration for both teams because at any moment they can pounce on each other, but they can also control games if they need to.
Are you an analyst who puts a lot of stock in hometown advantage? Is that something that Morocco can draw on? I'll be honest with you, I'm neutral sometimes about it because sometimes it can work against you because of the pressure. So I try not to look at it, but statistically, I suppose if you were in Morocco, you'd want to be at home rather than playing away, right?
Yeah, you would. And, I mean, they can only refer to Ivory Coast.
Yeah.
Ivory Coast, as I mentioned earlier, they were close to being knocked out. And then they had a bit of that 12th man spirit. They got motivated to keep going in games, and they went to extra times, penalties, with the confidence of the home crowd back in them. And Morocco have gone through some games, especially in the group stages, with that kind of approach where it's tight, they're 2-1 up, and the home crowd is just saying, get over the line, guys, we've got this. And I think that'll help them psychologically more than anything. But Nigeria they're not chumps. They're going to go in there and say, we don't care where we are, we're here to play football and we're here to win. They don't have a World Cup to look forward to in a few months. So this is all they've got for at least the next couple of years.
Interesting point that, of course, which is still a shock to me. It's strange how, we didn't have Ghana in this tournament and yet they've qualified. So not normally that you get the anomaly. How do you, Yvette, see this game? Because you've gone for Senegal in the first one. Who are you leaning towards in the second? Do you agree with Ray it's a tough one to call?
It's a tough one to call. I definitely agree with Ray, especially, like I said, with the football that Nigeria have been playing as of late. I mean, so far, out of all the teams in the AFCON, they're averaging the most goals. I think they're averaging 3 goals per game. We saw them conceding very silly goals in the earlier stages of the AFCON. In the group stages, they were conceding goals against teams who, let's be honest, they shouldn't have been conceding against. But ever since, they entry into the quarterfinal, they've really upped their game. And I'm comfortable in saying Nigeria, for me, is the only team that is not nervous to play in North Africa at all. They're not nervous of the atmosphere. They're not nervous of the supporters. The way North Africans play, I feel as though Nigeria are the only team that kind of match that style of play. So it's a very tough one to call. But again, with Morocco being at home, we know the history of North African teams playing in North Africa. Sometimes the refs, as we've seen in previous games, tend to lean towards them. I definitely think Morocco is going to walk away with this one.
It's interesting because I can always monitor Nigerians' bullishness because my phone's sitting over there. I left it over there because I've had Chewy Chew from Nigeria phoning me 42 times. Out-trumped, even Wafai from Super Picks has been contacting me saying, I told you. Moses, you've seen him, he's been strutting his stuff in studio. Yep. Everybody, all my Nigerian friends, no Pepe, have been inundated. And I think Nigeria are one of those sides, Ray. When they're on the front foot, they are, to your point, almost unplayable. There's a confidence about them. When they're poor, and they have been poor at times in the last 2-3 years, then they go the other way. But they seem to have their mojo.
Yeah, they've got their flow now.
Yeah.
They've got their consistency. They've had conflict inside the dressing room, but the manager has been quick to say to the media, we're going to sort that out and we're going to make sure that when we step out on that pitch, we're a unit. And that's what they have now. They have a very siege mentality when it comes to tournament football because they feel like it's the world against them. And I think for this tournament, it's given them an extra bit of fuel. They know they're not going to the World Cup. This is all they're playing for. People have been trolling them online saying, how come you guys are so good now when you couldn't even get past, likes of South Africa and Zimbabwe, with all due respect to our teams. But I think this tournament has just shown that they are as good as they want to be. It's whether or not the other team that we're facing in Morocco in this instance will be able to withstand that and respond to it properly.
Okay, I had 2 Senegalese votes earlier on, and you gave me a score of 2-1, you thought, in the first match. Ray, what about this one? You say it's going to be tight. Is it tighter to call on the goal front as well? Do you think it'll be a tighter game altogether?
I think so. Or it could be free scoring. It's honestly one of
Could go either way.
Yeah, because Nigeria have created chances against everyone, and they've found it easy to create chances. In this match, though, I'll give the North African hosts a slight advantage because of the 12th man, because of the difference makers that they have in their team. I mean, Nigeria are not short of them, but I think for that one night, for that big occasion, they'll turn it up a bit more and maybe win by a 0 after 90 or 120.
Just the last comment on this game. You mentioned the coaches. If I, heaven help the Moroccan team, but if I was the coach of the Moroccan team, I would, to your point, be saying, listen, we've got to be careful of these guys. They're on the front foot. They're confident. They're scoring freely. Let's not go gung-ho. Let's just first 15, 20 minutes, let's be solid. Let's not concede. Is that good advice?
I think so, but the contrast or perhaps the contradiction would be the crowd wouldn't want to see that.
Yeah.
Because they're still at home, in inverted commas. But I think from the coach's perspective, I think he should be the one to say, guys, it's a very different opponent than the teams that we faced in the knockout stages. Let's just make sure that we stay solid because they can create from literally anywhere.
You know what? It's fascinating, Yvette, because, you know, football fans are so fickle.
Yeah.
But you want to actually play to an audience that understand their football, because if I was a Moroccan supporter, I would be saying, well, we've got to be careful here. So I don't mind them being cagey the first 20 minutes. Let's get the job done. But if you're piling pressure on in the first 25 minutes as a Moroccan in the stadium saying, I demand a goal, that could actually end up shooting you in the foot, because the result at the end of the day is the key thing. But we all know, from chairmans and ownerships of clubs, for example, there's no patience in football. We'll have a podcast later on in the week talking about the Premier League, and already how many managers, coaches have lost their job. I mean, it's incredible. We could be in a situation, slightly off the point, but it illustrates what I'm talking about, is that if Nuno is to lose his job at West Ham, he'll be the first manager to get fired twice in the same season in the Premier League by 2 things. So I think it illustrates there's just no patience in football at all. How do you see the game? Give us a score.
I have to agree with Ray. It's going to be a very, very tight game. Morocco are at home. They are at home, and they understand that they're going in against a side who is out for blood.
Yeah.
Nigeria have a point to prove. So it's going to be a tight game. I mean, if you're looking at the squad again, I can't help but just admire what great football Nigeria is playing. It's going to be a tight one for sure. We know that Morocco haven't conceded in open play. They've conceded a penalty. That also counts in their favor as well. So again, it's going to be tight. I'm looking at a 1-0 maybe to Morocco.
Okay.
Or
So
a
this is
2-1.
nice because it makes it easier for me. So you've set up a Moroccan-Senegalese final. Think about who you're going to go for in the final. While you think about that, I want to talk a little bit about Morocco with a view to World Cups coming up. The Moroccan performance, they are at home and there's an advantage to that.
Yes.
But this is no surprise. They probably, as I see it, being on an upward curve now for a good 5-6 years. Whatever they're doing well. So it's no surprise that they're competitive, and they might prove to be equally competitive again in a World Cup. But whatever success they're getting is no fluke.
No, they're the best side in Africa, according to rankings. So they're no mean feats. I mean, they went to the World Cup in 2022 and finished third. So these are guys who know how to perform. So I don't worry about them performing in the big stages because they're used to it now.
Yeah.
Their captain, who's been injured and sort of began to feature lately, Ashraf Hakimi, is a world-class defender. He's won everything now with PSG.
Absolutely.
He knows what it takes to go over the line. And they've got a bunch of players who've done that. Brahim plays for Real Madrid. I mean, if you know pressure, then Real Madrid is the ultimate pressure cooker. So I think for them and for what they're looking for in this tournament, this will be a great platform to go into the World Cup and say, we want to go do one better. We want to be the best African side to ever play in the World Cup, the first one to win the World Cup, hopefully. I think they have a lot of impetus and motivation, not just from the fans, but from the players. There's an innate belief in that squad that they can do literally anything this year.
Well, you've set it up perfectly, and I think you're right. It's a perfect storm really for Morocco, because Morocco as a nation are putting their players on the map, and the players equally now are playing at some of the big clubs and putting Morocco, and it's a perfect synergy going on there. So Morocco for you, If you were to pick one of the four, you go for Morocco.
I would, yes. I would have picked Nigeria because they find a way, but they're not in the World Cup.
Yeah, yeah. What about you, Yvette? Final, if it's going to be a Moroccan-Senegalese final, would you stick with the home side, do you think?
I'm sticking with what I said from when we were on Playbook. I had called it and said Morocco is going to win this AFCON, and I sticking to my guns. They're going to take it.
Wonderful. Well, there it is, and I hope they're right, because I hate to echo them, but I probably think that that's exactly how it's going to pan out. I'm not too sure about the Egyptian-Senegalese semi-final. I think Ray and Yvette are right. It will be tight, but win, lose or draw, I think Morocco will get past, find a way. Sorry, Moses and my friends from Nigeria. I think that Morocco, with hometown advantage, will get through the final and probably win the cup. Let's hope that they do. Let's hope that we get lots of goals, because you can watch all the entertainment, of course, live on your World of Champions. My thanks to Ray, my thanks to Yvette. This is the MVP Podcast.